weather so cold your sweat froze. It took beatings so harsh you thought your skull would cave in. It took choosing almost certain quick death over almost certain slow death. It took desperate acts behind enemy lines. I had learned many things in the year and a half since I joined the Army. I learned how to fall out of planes and land without breaking my neck or wrenching my knee. I learned how to blow up bridges and detect booby traps and mines. I learned how to navigate in the dark using stars and dead reckoning. I learned how to survive behind enemy lines where everyone wants you dead or worse. I learned how to kill and how not to look too deeply into the eyes of the man you shot for fear of seeing your reflection. I learned how to become a savage. I learned how very dark a man's soul can become when he wills himself to survive. Desperation, hunger, vengeance, and most of all my training as a paratrooper with the U.S. Army's 82nd Airborne made me a fierce warrior, but a reluctant one. Under other circumstances, maybe, I could have been friends with some of the people I had to shoot. But I'd been in a place where I had no friends and where everyone I met carried my death sentence, no matter how kind their glance seemed. I tried putting all of that out of my mind as I walked. Today was not a day for deep reflection. Today was a day to celebrate. VE Day. The war in Europe was over. Chapter 1. Middle America. Clinton, Iowa. I am 95 years old as I am writing this. There are blanks in my memory now, things I want to remember but can't, names especially, things I never knew to remember. There are also things I'd rather forget but can't. I will lay it all out here to the best of my ability, blanks and all. My childhood was nothing special for the Depression in Middle America. We were poor and a large family. I guess millions of Americans could say about the same thing. I was born and have lived in Clinton, Iowa my whole life. Most people, when they think of Iowa, imagine vast rows of corn and fields that go on forever, rising from thick clods of black dirt and aiming at an endless sky. That is Iowa, but we're also on the border of the Mississippi and have our share of hills and streams, forests and swamps. In the eastern half of the state, the river remains an essential fact of life. Lumber was especially important in Clinton's story. They called the city the lumber capital of the world. The wood would be sent down the Mississippi and collected here in town. Large rafts of trees were tied together and pushed by boats to the sawmills and woodworking factories. Anything you could think of that could be made of wood was made in one of those factories. Furniture, fancy cabinets, doors, window frames, toys. It was good business. I was told there were more millionaires in Clinton than any other small town in America. South Clinton was said to be built on sawdust, the pilings and dredging of the river mixed with the factory leftovers. By my time, the sawmills had mostly disappeared, but there were still factories around making things from wood. The shops kept a good part of the city employed. Clinton was a lot like the rest of America, certainly Middle America, and the Midwest, when I was born in 1924. November 4th, 1924, to be exact. There were cars, buses, and trucks, but people would walk a mile or two, or 4, and not think too much of it. Not everyone had indoor plumbing. My parents were poor, admittedly, but they didn't get running water until after World War II. I can still remember emptying the chamber pot. We learned what was going on in the world and down the street from newspapers, which would print special editions during the day if something big had happened. Just about everyone, even my parents, had a radio. TV hadn't been invented, and forget about computers, the internet, or any of that. It would have seemed like Buck Rogers stuff, the science fiction hero from the future who first appeared in the comics in 1929, and movies a little after that. My family's roots were in Germany, the Hanover area. I'm not sure why my grandparents came.